there's so much information out there on the web, and there's so much, today there's so much news information out there, but much like the goal with Google overall and trying to help people find information and what they're looking for, that's really what we're trying to do with Google News is sort of put together sort of as many different sources as possible, but make it in sort of an easily organized way. Google News does the last 30 days. It doesn't go back any further than that. So it is really what's happening now. And I think Google News always was able to give you news from anywhere, sort of more of a global perspective, any place, in that we have Google News Mobile, so you can sort of do it in various different devices. And the nice thing about Google News Archives is it's getting to the point of being able to offer stories from any point in time. So you can see here, I've done a search for Steve Jobs, and then it pulls up dates where there are past stories on Steve Jobs here. Another nice feature about this is you can click on here, you can see a timeline view of all the different stories. So you can see sort of the cluster of different stories about Apple, and then obviously there's a lot more information, starting in the 70s as they launched, and then especially in the 80s, and then sort of died down, and then sort of the comeback. And you can sort of track it that way and dig in. So if I want to see the stories from this time period, I can drill down a little bit further and again find all these articles going back. What we do is if there are online archives, we're able to crawl those, whether they're free or paid, and in some cases going back over 200 years of information. So the New York Times goes back, I think, over 100 years at least with their archives. A lot of it is completely free now that they've pulled down the wall from Time Select. So users can do a search, and then on the left-hand side of Google News, you can see key dates that are pulled out based on sort of how much publishing activity there is around a certain time period. Time magazine has digitized their entire archive, so I think they go back to 1932 or so. So this is live in English right now, and we're again working with more and more publishers to bring this content, to digitize it and to bring it online. Just because I think it's a great feature for users to be able to understand a given story, iconic events. I mean, you can go back and read these from the reports as it happened, and so it's not necessarily sort of it's a very different perspective to read it instead of in a history book, but actually the actual accounts on the day that a given event happened from hundreds of different sources. We can work with a number of different business models. There are certain publishers who will have either a subscription or registration required, and we can't crawl that if our crawlers get a paywall or a subscription wallet. I mean, a crawler won't know what to do when it gets that. So publishers can deal with that in a number of different ways. One thing they can do is just let our crawlers come in, so it allows our crawlers to come, but then when a user comes, they still get their paywall. So we can, they'll allow our crawlers in, but not necessarily the users. Something else that they can do, which the Wall Street Journal and Financial Times have done, is something called First Click Free, where not only does it allow our crawlers to come in, when a user comes, they click on a given article, they're able to get access to it for free. But if they try and click through to a second article or a third article, then they get a paywall. It's really important that we work effectively with publishers because we talked a little bit about this, there's a balance in that relationship, that if we don't have great content, if we can't find their content, there's not as much value in Google News. And from their side of it, if they don't help us sort of surface their content, then we can't send all the traffic to them. I guess there are, I don't know about 3, but there are certainly 2 tips, I would say. One is create a new sitemap. Sitemap is sort of a pretty well-recognized standard that are used by all the different search engines. So Yahoo, Microsoft, and Google all sort of recognize the general sitemap framework. But then there's also something specific to Google News, which is a news sitemap. And it won't change your rankings. It won't it's not really sort of a feed that you send us, but it ensures that when we do crawl your site, that we're able to find the information. Maybe you've done a redesign, you have a new URL, you've added a new section. It makes sure that we can find that when it's time for us to go and crawl your site.